Welcome back to the Wood Shop, everybody. I'm Jim Viebrock. In today's episode, we're going to make a canoe paddle. Let's get started. Okay, it's a really cold day here in Southwest Missouri, and it's kind of rainy and nasty outside, so I thought this would be a good day to come into the wood shop and get caught up on some of the little craft projects that my wife always has me do. So what I love about the paddle that we're going to make today is that it's very durable. A lot of material like pine or whatever could be easily broke. You could take this handle and break it very easily. The cedar is a good solid wood, and you can buy this board cheaply if you buy it in a dog-ear fence board. Now, the dog-ear fence board is going to be available at your big box retailer or lumber yard. Like I say, it's 6 foot, and it comes in either treated or untreated. The treated is going to be pine. The untreated is going to be cedar, and the cedar is going to be about $1 a board more, but I love it because it's a durable wood, and it looks good, and it smells good, and it paints up real pretty. So for my choice, I'm going with the cedar. I don't recommend that you use the CCA lumber fence boards because of the chemicals that are in it. You don't want those chemicals in your house, and you don't want to be sanding on those and having all that airborne chemical in the air. So if you can have redwood, that would be great, but I like the cedar. So it's just a standard 6 foot dog-ear rough sawn fence board. We're going to need a couple of tools today. I'm going to use some of my big tools as I go along, just simply for production and speed. But you don't have to. You can use your basic shop tools that you have in your garage or your work shed without any problem. So the first one you would use is your trusty old jigsaw. This one I've had for about 40 years and it still works great. So use one. You'll have one of these real close, or a bandsaw. I'm going to use a bandsaw today because I have one. You're also going to need some kind of a orbital sander or a pad sander of some kind, because we're going to take these down to a smooth finish, and they are currently rough sawn. And then you're going to want a belt sander of some kind just to do the main surfaces as you go across. I'm going to use my tabletop. So what I have here is a pattern. This is made out of an 1/8" piece of plywood. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I make patterns for everything. This pattern will be available on my website, which is maintenanceminute.net. You can also probably find it on Maintenance Minute on my Facebook page, Maintenance Minute with Jim Viebrock. So you'll be able to find it, but this is real simple. You can just draw it out. It's 36 inches long. So I'm going to be able to get 2 of these out of a single dog-ear fence board. So with today's lumber prices, I'll be able to make 2 of these for about $4. So $2 a piece, not too bad for a craft project. You'll probably be able to sell them for $12, $15, $18. Depends on how detailed you get with the painting and stuff. But the bare wood one, at least $12, $15, no problem. So what I'm going to do then is take this pattern, and I'm going to square it up with the end of the dog-ear fence board. Now, I want to show you something before we get started here. This is your 6 foot dog-ear fence board. They almost always will have a tag on the end here that is stapled in there. So just take a screwdriver, pop that out of there, and get it out of the way. You don't want to run that through a belt sander or through a saw. Okay, so back to the fence board and the pattern. Got the pattern, and I'm just going to square it up here on the end of the fence board. Now, it's possible that the end of your fence board is not square. If it's not, just tail it off with a saw of some kind. And so we're just going to square this up. I'm going to take my pencil, and I'm just going to trace this out real quick like. And so we've got a reference. Now, when you do the pattern, you may choose to just flip the pattern over so that it's exact on both sides. We don't try to make this absolutely symmetrical. And as a matter of fact, as you go through the sanding process, you'll probably move it around a little bit on the curves and stuff. We like the look of it being handmade. So I don't try to make every one of them identical. Okay? So again, with the fence board laying there and the pattern on top of it, I'm going to hold that pattern down firmly. And I'm going to use my pencil. And I'm just going to trace it out nice and firm. Dark line so I can see it when I get to the over to the bandsaw or the jigsaw. You know, when you got sawdust flying around, it's hard to see a light line. Always use a pencil, don't use a pen or a felt tip. Always use a pencil. Okay. So there I have that. And keep in mind, I can do two. So what I'm going to do is slide this down, and this part's going to stick up into the dog-eared part. Let me get a few of these things out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to line this up down here with the mark on here, but I want to leave about 1/8 of an inch in between them for the blade, the saw blade, because if you don't do that, then you're going to end up with a short piece of your paddle, which doesn't really matter because it's not matching it up to anything. So here we go again. I'm just going to hold it firm, and it's going to stick up in there. And then we're just going to mark this out. So I can get 2 per fence board, which makes them about $2 a piece. So there's the pattern. This way, all of them are going to be pretty close to the same. There's just going to be a couple little custom marks in between them. So the next thing I need to do is cut this in half. I'm going to go over to my compound miter saw and cut that in half. You can do it with your jigsaw if you don't have one of those. Okay, I'm over at my compound miter saw. Again, you can cut this even with your jigsaw, hand saw. You can cut this with whatever is necessary to do it. Again, I'm just going to point out, I did leave a small space in between this handle and the bottom of the paddle, just so that I don't mess up the pattern or make one of them smaller than the other. So I'm just going to line this up, cut it, make sure that I got it square. And now I've got both of my pieces, and I'm ready to cut them out either with the jigsaw or the bandsaw. Okay, I'm over at my handy dandy bandsaw. I have changed the blade on my saw. It's not much wider than that of the jigsaw because there's some pretty tight radiuses here, and you're going to hear this thing bind just a little bit. I'm going to give it the time to go through it nice and slow on these tight radiuses here that I have. So you can see my pattern here, and again, the board's still rough because there's no point in sanding on the lumber that you're not going to use. So I'm going to fire this up, and I'm going to work it through nice, slow, and easy. Okay, if you don't have a bandsaw, then we're going to show you how to use a jigsaw to do the same thing. So what I've done is I've clamped it to my table so that it can't move. It doesn't work. If you've got someone who can help you, they can hold it firmly. It's kind of hard to hold it and cut it at the same time. Now, this is a steel table here, and I don't want to run my blade up into that steel. So look down through there and make sure that as you cut through that, you're not going to be trying to cut into that steel table. But other than that, it's the same principle as the bandsaw. You're just going to follow it slowly along the line. Just like that. It's as simple as it can be to make one of these. So the next thing we're going to start to do is simply start to clean it up. Okay, I'm over here at my desktop sander. Again, I have about 80 grit on here, so this is really going to chew this up. But you can see these saw lines in here and the little fuzzies that are on here. I'm just going to do a rough cleanup of this before I go over to the finish, because this is a very aggressive sander and it'll do this way quicker. And again, for me, time is money. I've got to crank out a whole bunch of these. As a matter of fact, my wife wants 50 of these today, so I've got a lot to do. So let's get started with the sanding. Okay, so you can see that I've given it a good once over. So I've kind of softened it up a little bit, but I still have a rough texture on it, and that would be hard on your hands if you were actually trying to use it, which I think you actually could use this in a canoe if you had one. You might want to make it just a little bit longer, but it would be functional, and it is strong enough. But for decorating purposes, I want to soften this up even more. So I'm going to take my orbital sander, and I've got 80 grit on here, and I'm going to just clean this up, and then I'm going to go around the edges, soften it up, and then we're going to soften it one more time after that. Now, to get it to this point, I used my desktop belt sander. You could just as easily use the portable type belt sander, just like that, same way. So let's get started with smoothing this up just a little bit. Okay, now that we've got this nice and smooth, see how pretty it is? I love cedar because it's such pretty wood. I'm going to take this sanding block. This is a 180 sanding block. You might use 80 or 100, but I 180 because I want it nice and smooth. And the reason with the belt sander that we kind of beveled the edges wasn't for a perfect beveled edge, but it took some of the material off to make this part of it much easier to do. So now that I'm satisfied and happy with my finish on the front, I'm just going to come along here and soften up the sides just that bit more with this hand block. And it also lets me get any of the little burrs or anything that I may not have gotten with the orbital sander or the other sander. So I'm going to just go through here and do a final softening of these edges, and it gets rid of any little burrs. And this is the part nobody likes because it's manual labor. But this is the part that makes your project nice. And like I say, the aggressive sanding we did with the belt sanders may put little nicks in it where it's uneven. Don't worry about that. That makes it look like somebody's had a hold of it and it's seen a little bit of wear and tear over its life. So it doesn't always look brand new. Now the next phase of this, my wife, who has Whistle Stop Custom Creations on Facebook, the Facebook page, Whistle Stop Custom Creations. She also has recipesandredesigns.com, and where she's doing blogs, and all of her projects are there. So she's going to finish this in a separate video, and I have a link to it at the end of this video and links to it in the description so that you can find it and see how she finishes these up. You'll also be able to see some of the projects that we've combined other things with these paddles and got them done. So after your sanding, you're pretty much done and ready to start doing what you're going to do with it. You can stain it, you can paint it, you can stencil it, do whatever you want to do. Like I said, you can scale this up, you can scale it back, you can do whatever you want to do. The pattern for it will be on maintenanceminute.net in the patterns section. There'll also be a direct link to it in the description of this video. So this was a very quick, very easy project to do. It's a fun project to do. Anybody can do this project. All you need is these very basic tools. You don't have to be a master craftsman to do it. So thank you for watching. And if you have any questions or anything, just post them in the comments. We love to hear your comments.
Are you interested in woodworking or home repair? If so, please look at maintenanceminute.net. Hi, I'm Jim Viebrock, and I'm the host of Maintenance Minute. From my website, you can watch videos on how to build a variety of arts and crafts projects, full-on woodworking builds, and home repair and remodeling tips, too. We recently added an archive section where you can see over 40 years of projects that I have built. Please take a moment and visit maintenanceminute.net.